interrupt your regularly scheduled podcasting for an important news update. It has been approximately 1 week since the Xbox Empire launched all-out war against the PlayStation Island and Nintendo Shack. These attacks were quick, devastating, leaving many in its ruin, wondering just how they will rebuild and move on with their lives. But not all are standing side by side with the Empire. A leading general of the Empire himself, Q, also known as Lobo Rican, had released this message on the internet.
I condemn, in the strongest sense of the word, the attack on PlayStation Island and the Nintendo Shack. For the second time in the last few months, podcasters who put their lives on the line for hours every day were doing their job when they were killed in a cowardly and reprehensible assault. These are attacks on public servants and on civilized society, and they have to stop. I've offered my full support and the full support of the rebellion to Mayor Kyle, Sheriff Seth, Deputies Justin and Devin, and those weird Nintendo guys who hang out in the woods. And make no mistake, justice will be done. We may not yet know the motives for this attack, but I want to be clear. There is no justification for violence against our peers. None. These attacks are the work of cowards who speak for no one. They right no wrongs, and they advance no causes. They were our fellow Americans, part of our community, part of our country, with people who loved and needed them, and who need us now, all of us, to be at our best.
So there you have it, folks. Proof that not all from the Empire are evil. We all must bond together and stand strong while... Oh, I'm getting this in right now. Okay, we're going to go live to Mayor Kyle of PlayStation Island with the press conference.
More than any time in recent history, PSVG's destiny is not of our own choosing. We did not seek, nor did we provoke an assault on our freedom and our way of life. We did not expect, nor did we invite a confrontation with evil. Yet the true measure of a people's strength is how they rise to master that moment when it does arrive. The streets of heaven are too crowded with angels tonight. There are peers, and our families, and our friends. The streets of heaven are too crowded with angels, but every time we think we have measured our capacity to meet a challenge, we look up, and we're reminded that that capacity may well be limitless. This is a time for heroes. We will do what is hard. We will achieve what is great. This is a time for heroes, and we reach for the stars.
Well, there you have it, folks. Straight from the horse's mouth. I now return you back to your regularly scheduled broadcasting. This has been Ronnie Fleece with PSVG News.
Welcome to Play Some Video Games, the only gaming podcast that spends most of its time talking about Nintendo and Xbox, but that is only to hide its true love for all things PlayStation. This is your host, Kyle. That's right, Kevin has relinquished the keys to the shack, and we have moved it to the beautiful PlayStation Island this week, where it can live a happy life amongst friends. Thanks for tuning in, and if you're a new listener, welcome. If you like what you hear, please tell a friend. Joining me today for this very special PlayStation-centric episode are Seth. How's it going today, Seth?
It's going very well.
We also have Justin. How are we doing, Justin?
Absolutely fantastic.
It's great to have you here, sir. And last but not least, Devin. Welcome to the show today.
Hey, how's it going?
It is going fantastic. Now, this week's episode is going to be a bit different, as we're going to be doing a year in review for PlayStation. So most of what we typically do is out the window today, but I hope you'll still give us a listen, even if you're an Xbox player or a Nintendo player. Hopefully this will still have some meaning for you. An important note, though, is we are recording this episode on November 25th, Black Friday if you're here in the United States. So some of the biggest releases still to come, Steep, Final Fantasy 15, The Last Guardian, none of those things have been released yet when we're recording this. Also, if there's a bombshell at PSX coming up in early December, we don't know about that yet either. So please kind of keep that in mind as we progress. We know this episode's coming out sometime in December, but I don't know exactly what day. So kind of keep that in mind as you're listening to this. So with the housekeeping out of the way, we're going to do a bit of a different check-in. Instead of talking about what we've been playing this week, I really want to do a yearly check-in. So gentlemen, when we look back at 2016, specifically for PlayStation, how will you remember it? The good, the bad, the great, and the sad. So I'll go ahead and kick this off to give you all a chance to think. But when it comes to 2016, I think this really for PlayStation, unfortunately, was kind of the year of missteps. No Man's Sky launch didn't really go the way folks wanted it to. There was a lot of hype for that game beforehand. And then, well, we all know as PlayStation fans, the results of that hype. There was kind of that weirdness of the PS4 Pro reveal where they kind of tried to recapture the magic of when they first initially announced the PS4. And it fell pretty flat for people because it was much more of a, hey, I'm going to sit here and talk to you. It was a press conference rather than a cool stage show that like we got at E3. The price of PS Plus went up, but then the games the next month were, for most people, pretty disappointing. Xbox is now regularly outselling the PS4 as we pull into the end of the year here. I personally don't care about numbers. I think, play the system you want to, and I'm always glad when other people are doing well. But, for Sony, who has been riding quite the wave of success, that was definitely probably a little hard for them to hear. On top of that, a ton of game delays, games that were supposed to be, pretty much every game it feels like missed its release date. Games that were supposed to come out this fall completely missing this year again for the third year in a row. So, year 3 of when the console's really supposed to be hitting its stride and we're supposed to be getting all of those top releases, I feel like in some ways this was the worst year for PlayStation as a brand. Now, there were some great games, and we'll definitely talk about that a little bit later, but overall I feel like in some ways this was kind of a down year for PlayStation. Seth, what do you think? Am I totally wrong?
No, I don't think so. It definitely wasn't as good of a year as we thought it could have been last year at this time. But I still think it was overall a pretty good year. Back in, I think, was it May, we got Uncharted 4, which delivered, I think, delivered on all accounts, and we'll probably be talking about that a little bit later. Then you touched on No Man's Sky. I have been excited about No Man's Sky since it was first revealed at the Game Awards, I think in 2013. So I've been looking forward to that an awful lot. And even launch week, I played it a ton. And I played it for a good while after it launched. But eventually, I never made it to the center. I think I ended up still like 100,000 light years away from the center. But it kind of did most of what I wanted to, and then just really got kind of discouraged by the lack of response from anybody, from Hello Games. Just kind of shut things down. Actually, until today on Black Friday, as we're recording this, they just released that they're going to be adding some base building stuff officially. But we literally haven't heard anything from them in 2 months at least. So that was kind of disappointing. You touched on the PS4 Pro event, which kind of leading up to in the different rumors that were going on, I was kind of excited about it, and then the event hit, and it seemed like the Pro was a very modest step up, and couldn't see why really I would need it. Now that changed here in the past week or so, but there are other things that go into that. Then he talked about delays. But then there was also the VR launch, which I didn't personally buy into, but I really felt like that was an exciting thing. It still is an exciting thing when thinking about the future of games, and it's pretty neat that PlayStation's here at the beginning of it. The E3 presentation was really good as far as looking toward the future of games for PlayStation, assuming that future actually materializes. So it was an okay year. I did get to the end of the year here, and there's not really anything I'm super excited to play that has come out here in November and December and even back into October. Just not a whole lot that I've been running out to get, but that's not necessarily a problem either because I'm playing a bunch of older games right now. So
Excellent. Justin, what say you? How will you remember 2016?
Man, well, I'm not gonna be a party pooper like you guys. I mean, come on, we're on the PlayStation Island. We gotta, have some fun. I do agree with both you guys to an extent. I think there's been some setbacks. Definitely the No Man's Sky stuff, which part of it's, the developer to blame. I do think a lot of it is PlayStation to blame, but we did it. We had amazing games come out this year, and for me, I think Uncharted 4 came out this year, which, I'm sure we'll be talking about later on this episode, but I was certainly very impressed by that game, and coming from, I never had a PS3, so I just finished the first 3 Uncharteds right before I played Uncharted 4, so I was very impressed with that game. And for me, 2016 was just the year of shooters and great third-party games. I mean, there's definitely been some PlayStation exclusives missing, but as far as some great third-party games, and I mean, just the shooters that came out this year have all been great. Even, we had Doom, Ratchet and Clank, the new military shooters that just came out in the last month have, most of them have been great. So I've had a lot of good gaming this year with my PlayStation 4. So I think it's been a good year so far.
All right. So Devin, what are your thoughts?
Well, I would say you guys all kind of hit it right on the head. I mean, it's been a really good year. I think it's been kind of up and down with a couple of the missteps, with the No Man's Sky, the weird lack of any information after the PSVR launch, the weird messaging around PS4 Pro. But you got to remember, the PS4 dominated sales pretty much this entire year. It is pretty much the go-to console still. After 3 years, it's still like the console that everybody's playing. So I think that's a huge get for PlayStation. We've had a couple of delays, but we're finally getting The Last Guardian this year. We're finally going to see Final Fantasy 15, which even though it's not a console exclusive, it's probably way more biased towards PlayStation gamers. We did have Uncharted 4, which is just one of the best games of the year, hands down. And we got new hardware, so I think it's been a really good and a really fun year for PlayStation. There's been some letdowns, but I think the good that we've seen this year on the PlayStation side definitely outweighs the bad by far. And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I've had a great year with my PlayStation. I mean, just all throughout the year, there have been games that I've wanted to play. Like in the beginning of the year, you had, you had Uncharted, you had Doom, then you had No Man's Sky, which even though, people didn't like it, I enjoyed it. It's one of those games where if I can actually just sit down and be left alone for a while, it's one of those games I could really, really get into. This fall, I mean, we didn't have a huge blockbuster for PlayStation, but all of the different shooters that came out, whether it be Battlefield, Call of Duty, or Titanfall 2, have all been excellent. I'm still itching to get into Watch Dogs 2, and I just picked up Dishonored 2, which I am absolutely loving. So throughout the entire year, I've definitely had stuff to play. So it's been a really, really good year for me as far as PlayStation is concerned.
All right, so to take a little sidestep here, so I know that Seth and myself, and it sounds like Devin, all played No Man's Sky. Justin, did you play No Man's Sky at all?
I played a few hours. I didn't get into it that much, but I wasn't one of the people that had high expectations from that game. So I played it for probably 5 to 10 hours, somewhere in there. Had some fun, and then never really went back to it. And I'm one of the people that, because I didn't put that much time into it, if they do throw some big patches in there, I'll probably revisit it for a few hours. But nothing I'm terribly upset about.
Gotcha. So Justin, you're being a bit prophetic with where I was going to go with this. So now that they've announced this new, the next patch, and it's going to add base building back, basically, or the beginnings of base building, if you actually read kind of the information they sent out. I just am interested. Is this something that will bring you back to the game? And we'll just kind of go around and talk about that for a moment. So, Seth, with this new patch, will you be going back to No Man's Sky at all?
No. I actually sold No Man's Sky, I don't know, a month ago. Sometime in the past month, as I've been going through my transition my sort of console transition from the PS4 up to the PS4 Pro, which we'll talk about in a minute, and kind of saving for another console next year from another company. So that was my actual copy of the game was kind of caught up in that and all of that. So I'm not going back into it right now. I might pick it back up at some point if either if the price is right, or certainly if it's a PlayStation Plus game, I would certainly download it. But I really wasn't super excited about base building anyway. I don't entirely know what that entails, and it just I really don't know what I'm looking for it for as a hook to get me back in, but this isn't it.
Gotcha. Justin, will this cause you to jump back in? It sounds like maybe a little bit.
Yeah, I'll jump in for a few minutes. Probably, I don't know when that patch will go live or anything, but if it comes out in the beginning of next year, in between some big releases, and I have some time, I'll definitely jump back in and just see what's going on. Usually I do buy my games physically, but I actually ended up buying this one digitally, so I guess I'm stuck with it either way, so I might as well see what they're doing to it.
Gotcha. And Devin, do you have any desire with this new patch to jump back into No Man's Sky?
I have it still digitally, just like Seth does or Justin does, but base building, I don't quite understand how that even is supposed to work in a game when you're trying to work towards the center of the galaxy. Like, where's my base? How far away is it? What's the point? So it's not something that's going to entice me to get back into it, but the overall game is fun enough for me to go back with or without base building as an added bonus.
Perfect. So I think I probably will jump back in. I still have the game. I did purchase it physically, but I never traded it back in. So, I'm interested, I think more of anything, just to kind of see what this is all about and what their continued vision for it is. And some people wanted to compare No Man's Sky to Destiny, saying that, hey, in a year, this game might be great. So I'll be interested to see, is this the first of many patches? Is it going to, all depend on how this goes and if it brings players back or what's really going to happen with it. So I think it's No Man's Sky I always thought was the bones of a very good game. It just needed a little more meat, to kind of flesh things out a little bit, and maybe this is the start of that meat.
Right.
So
I would say one difference between, even in that comparison to Destiny, of course, the size of the company from Hello Games and their 6 or 10 people or whatever they have to Bungie and Activision, obviously there's not a comparison there. But as someone who was in on day one with Destiny also, they communicated with the player base and they changed things pretty quickly as far as just adding things and trying to enhance the experience. Of course, it really took the giant leap forward for a lot of people when Taken King came out. But there was communication all throughout the time there. Unlike there's been no communication from No Man's Sky other than a weird tweet that may or may not have been a hack a few weeks ago.
yeah.
And again, Activision and Bungie are behemoth, massive companies, and Hello Games is much smaller, and so I understand that. But it doesn't take, I think, that much to send out a weekly 2 paragraphs that says, hey, this is what we've been working on this week. You'll eventually see the fruits of our labor in a while, but we're not ready to announce specifics yet. Even if you had those breadcrumbs over these past couple months, I think that would have helped tremendously.
Definitely hear what you're saying there. So the main focus of this podcast is definitely going to be games, but I think I wanted to start talking about the fact that we received 2, or depending on how you look at it, 3 new pieces of hardware from Sony this year. The OG PlayStation 4 was replaced with a slim model, which is now just known as the PS4. We also got the PS4 Pro, and we got, this whole PSVR thing. So, have you guys gotten any of the new hardware? Have you picked anything up? Have you swapped anything out? If so, what are your thoughts? And if you haven't picked anything new up, why not? Devin, what are your thoughts, sir?
So I am definitely fiending for a PS4 Pro. I really like the idea of the high res or the high frame rate modes. Also, I have a 4K TV, so it'd be really nice to see what some of these games will look like in 4K, whether natively or checkerbox or however they want to do it. So I'm definitely all in on the Pro and just trying to line up all my ducks so I can go ahead and pick that up. As far as the VR, it's just it looks like it's fun, but I have the Gear VR, and that works just fine for me. I can't see myself spending too much time playing an actual VR game. I really just enjoy the idea of holding a controller and being able to jump in. I haven't tried any of the actual PSVR demos, but I just don't see it as something that I would be terribly interested in. And just from the games that they've showed, it hasn't interested me enough for me to want to make that jump. But the Pro, I'm definitely all in on. If my PS4 dies, I'd probably get a Slim because I want to keep the PS4 and have a PS4 Pro in addition. But other than that, yeah, the Pro, I'm all in on. VR, not quite sold.
Gotcha. Justin, have you picked up any of the new hardware this year?
I have not picked up any of the new hardware. I was a little bit interested in the PS4 Pro, and I was probably a little bit more interested in the PlayStation VR. I did get a chance to play the PlayStation VR at one of those Best Buy demos they were doing, and it was it was my first experience with like a legit VR, and my wife also tried it out, and I really enjoyed it, but I just don't think I can justify the cost for something that I know is not going to be my main gaming system. Even at the price point it's at right now, it's not not going to replace my PS4 as my main go-to gaming thing, and so it's just something I can't justify right now. I definitely think that the second iteration of the PlayStation VR or any of the other VR headsets will be more enticing, just because I think things will probably progress in the next couple of years when it comes to VR stuff. And then the PS4 Pro, I think I was thinking about getting one. Me and the wife are getting ready to probably buy a new TV, so it will be 4K, I'm sure, since that's pretty much all the TVs out now. But I just think it's not a big enough leap for me to really jump on yet. So I'm gonna hold off for now. Maybe I'll revisit, purchasing a Pro when I actually get the TV in the house.
Gotcha. So Seth, I know there's no way that you were buying a PS4 Pro, right?
Right. So when they had the event, I watched it, and I was interested in it, and I'm interested in 4K, sort of, though we don't have a 4K TV yet or anything. And then when you had the event and everything came out about it, it just didn't. If it looks like if you don't have a 4K TV yet, then there's no point to have a Pro. It does a couple other things, but that seems like it's kind of the main thing. I'm also, and I still am, kind of nervous that next E3 we're going to hear about the PS5 or something like that. Probably wouldn't come out next year, but maybe the following year. And just the idea of buying a new system now and then PS5 coming out in 2 years didn't excite me. But I don't know, a week or so ago, the PS4 Pro was on sale for a day on Amazon for $40 off to $360. And I was doing some searching on Facebook, and there's a local selling wall in the city I live in, and I was searching around on there and found someone who said they wanted to buy a PlayStation 4 for about $200, or that's what they were looking for. So I did a lot of researching, and that as far as selling a PS4 and trading it in and whatever, that's really a pretty good value on that. So essentially, I sold my PS4 and bought a PS4 Pro, upgrading for about $150 at the end of the day, and got that, installed it. I like it a lot. It's pretty much the same thing. I don't even really have any games right now that that take advantage of it. Although I did just I have Tomb Raider coming in, so I'll play around with some of the pro settings there. But I guess now that I actually have it, I like the idea that I'm sort of future proofing a little bit. That next year, maybe next year this time I get a 4K TV, and then I have a system that's ready to push out 4K. And so that's really what it was. I've also been looking at upgrading my PS4 original hard drive. I had just had the original in there at 500 gigabytes, which has been full for a long time, and I'm constantly having to delete games and add games and things like that, which isn't a problem because the way I look at it, I'm never going to play a full terabyte's worth of games all at the same time anyway. But it is definitely nice. I like having the extra space there now, and feel like I can keep some of the bigger games like your Uncharted 4, which is I think about 50 gigabytes, or some of those big games I can keep on my system without having to worry about the space as much. And then the other thing I really like about the Pro is the brand new controller that came with it. The thumbsticks are a lot better. They're just more durable. And it just feels like a sort of enhanced DualShock 4. It just feels like a good controller, and it feels a little bit sturdier than the original DualShock 4. So it's not, I wasn't planning on it, but now that I have it and it didn't cost me really a bunch to upgrade, I'm glad I have it.
Any thoughts on PSVR, sir?
Like I said, kind of in the intro, I'm excited about it, and I want to try it. I've never really tried VR. I tried one. I was able to sit in on an Air Force simulation where you were flying a jet, but that one kind of made me ill because the vision was kind of blurry, and it's one of those things where you sit down in the chair, they put the unit on you, and you have about 2 minutes, and then you're done. But I would really like to try, that's the only VR that I've tried. I'd like to try the PSVR at some point, but I am a little nervous about whether I'd get nauseous. But I think it's a very exciting thing for the future of gaming, for the future of entertainment, and just a lot of other societal things that we'll be able to do with it in the future.
So, for myself, I really, obviously I haven't purchased the Slim because I still have my OG PS4 going. I am definitely interested in a Pro, but I think that's going to be a down the line purchase for me someday, maybe next fall. It's something that I'll look at. The main reason I'm interested in a Pro actually is because I do have a PSVR. And from the folks that I've heard who have a Pro and a PSVR, it does make a pretty significant difference for many of the VR games. So this is one of the reasons that I'm kind of considering maybe a little sooner upgrading to the Pro than I had thought, because I know when it first came out, I really wasn't very interested in it. Like, I don't have a 4K television, probably won't have one of those for a while. But, hearing everyone talk about the advantage that it gives to PSVR, it definitely has made me more interested in getting a Pro. And I absolutely adore my PSVR. I think it's kind of might be that situation where I've never played the Rift or the Vive or anything like that, but I really enjoy the games I've played there, the experiences that I have, and I think Justin hit it on the head in a lot of ways. Like, it does not and has not replaced in any way, shape, or form my primary way of playing games where I sit down at my couch looking at my television. But this does give me some really cool experiences that I can get in a different way than when I'm playing on my television. And, I don't know if I've played a game yet that has to be in VR, and I think that's what a lot of people are waiting for, is what is that experience that has to be in VR? And I don't know that I've had that yet. And I also don't know that every experience has necessarily been quote-unquote great. By the time this post, I'll have a review up for Robinson the Journey. This game has taken me quite a while to get through just because it's not a long game, and I don't get motion sick when I play it, but I feel stressed when I play it. Like, my body physically feels something while I'm playing that game, like something isn't right in the world. And that game has made some people extremely motion sick. I haven't had that, but I literally can't play the game for more than about 30 or 45 minutes. Like, I'm actually starting to sweat. Like, my body just feels like something isn't right when I play that game. Now, I'm enjoying playing it, but just the act of playing it is physically taxing, which is something that doesn't typically happen, you know, when you're playing video games on the couch.
Yeah.
That sounds
awful.
Yeah, it's a little rough sometimes, but that's the only game that's been that way. Every other game I've played has been fine, but that game has been a little more taxing than I was expecting it to be. The one downfall, and actually another reason that I'm, you know, considering an upgrade, which, you know, this probably is a small reason, is my DualShock 4 controllers, both of them that I have, the joysticks on them now are starting to wear, where the cover is actually now starting to come off of them. So I had gone quite some time without having any issues, and both of them in the same week and a half or so. And I think it's because my wife and I played Overcooked together, and that game is quite stressful in its own way, especially when your wife's yelling at you because you're not like chopping up the beef fast enough. But yeah, it's, you know, I think that did a number on the joysticks, and those guys are pretty ragged now. So hopefully going to be picking some of those up soon. But I was like, hey, I could just upgrade to a whole new console. And my wife was like, yeah, I don't think that's quite the response for some worn out D-pad. But I tried. I was like, well, we'll give that a shot.
So that's why we ignore our wives sometimes.
As a side note, with the joysticks, have any of you guys like do-it-yourselfers where you can replace the sticks out with like the Xbox One sticks? Because I've done that, and both of my sticks, all three of my controllers, I swapped them out, and I still have all my launch controllers, and I did that at launch, and they're still fine. So just if you want a cheap and easy way to do that.
Yeah, I don't like the feel of the Xbox One sticks. I mean, that's just a personal preference for me. I don't really like. Oh, I guess I should double. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I mean, I was trying to think of had I played with them, you know, because I always think of the 360 controller, and I'm just not a huge fan of those sticks. So
yeah, I like the way they feel. I actually like them a lot better than the DualShock original sticks. So when I was fucking, I was like, oh, this is great. So I just did it to all my controllers.
No, that's a good tip, though. That's a good tip. So one thing, and this is going to be a little segue that it was not intended to be in the show, but I think it would be an interesting point to talk about quick. So we have the PS4 Pro that came out this year, and people thought that, you know, okay, this was supposed to be at E3, but then Sony got wind that Scorpio was going to be there and what the specs for Scorpio was, and so they just decided not to talk about it. PlayStation, of course, said no, it was never intended to be there. You know, they even announced before that it wouldn't be there. But now that Scorpio, you know, we have kind of the talk about that's happened as far as the power of this console. A, do you guys think that that's caught Sony by surprise this year? Did it, you know, kind of catch them on the back foot? And then B, as a result of that, how long do you think it'll be until we see the next PlayStation console?
I don't know if it caught them on the back foot. Certainly listening to other podcasts and reading some other industry some industry insider viewpoints, it sounded like it may have. I know from my own thoughts about the Pro and kind of the next few years in gaming, and we are already, it's been 3 years since the PS4 launched. And while the PS3 had a 7-year lifespan, you know, would the PS4 really have that long, or should be? Sorry, I can't talk. Should we be looking for something after even just 5 years? I think that the original idea of the PS4 Pro was to kind of do a mid-cycle stopgap that increases power, increases resolution, things like that, but isn't a full console generation. I really think that the Scorpio could move PlayStation's timeline up a year, and wouldn't at all be surprised to see the PlayStation 5 come out in 2018. Whereas before, maybe they were going to push for 2019, maybe even 2020, before the next bigger leap. But that's just based on listening to other people who are much more in tune with that than I am.
Gotcha. Devin, when do you predict we'll see the next PlayStation console?
I'm thinking hopefully 2018 at the earliest. I do think the Scorpio definitely caught Sony off guard. I don't think they saw that coming, especially with the amount of power that they're saying that it's going to put out. So I think that did kind of push up their cycle to actually, you know, get something out to compete with that. But I still think at the earliest we won't see a new console until 2018. Especially with all the stuff that they have in the pipelines, like in the works. Like you've got Days Gone, you've got God of War, you've got the new Spider-Man, which I would be very surprised if we saw all of those next year. I feel like those are 2018 releases. So for them to have to do that and then also push a new system, I mean, that kind of throws everything out of whack. So I'm hoping at the very earliest we see something by 2018. But I think it all depends on what the Scorpio really does. If it is something groundbreaking and it just completely murders everything that Sony is trying to do, then I think, yeah, that may push them up. But I don't think, with the fact that they've pretty much won this console cycle, I don't think it really puts too much stress on them to get something out right away, especially if the Scorpio is still considered, an Xbox One. It's the Xbox One Scorpio. It's still this generation. So it doesn't put you on any real pressure to put something out for the next generation console to compete with this generation still, when PlayStation 4 has already, leaps and bounds ahead of Xbox One in sales. So I think that at the earliest 2018.
Justin, what do you think?
I think the PS4 Pro was like a weird item to put out for Sony. I think they would have been fine just keeping the PS4 going. And I agree with Devin and thinking that I think it caught Sony off guard that Microsoft was going to have a bigger and badder console come out next year. I mean, the way some of the numbers that they were throwing out, I'm sure Sony is looking at that and going, that's not good for what they had planned with PS4 Pro. I definitely think it was probably just their original idea for a Pro was just a easy mid-cycle upgrade that developers could just kind of utilize here and there. And if you look at it, I mean, the Pro's selling for the same price that the original PS4 was selling at a couple years ago. I think it's really just a way for them to justify selling a unit or a SKU at the same level they have been, and that while offering a cheaper option as well with the Slim model. But like I said, I'm kind of interested in the Pro, but I don't think it may or may not be something I get. I was just thinking about, though, one of the things about the Pro that I found like absolutely bizarre that they didn't include was that it's a console. They're touting that it can do 4K gaming, but it doesn't come with a 4K capable Blu-ray drive, which I'm a big movie guy. If I get a 4K TV, I'm going to buy some 4K, the Ultra HD, whatever, 4K Blu-rays. It's kind of crazy that they didn't include that in this system that's, supposedly for a 4K TV. I think that was a huge misstep, really. I think it's something, it gave Microsoft an easy way to market that they already have that with the Xbox One they're selling right now, and I'm sure that the Scorpio will have that Blu-ray drive. And some people it may not matter, but I think it is a big misstep by Sony.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that. I don't know what they were thinking when they didn't include that. It doesn't make any sense, especially when Blu-ray is pretty much their technology. So
yeah, that's what
why
I thought
wouldn't
too.
you include that drive?
Yeah,
very, very confusing.
Yeah, I think that, Sony's response to that I thought was a little bit, Sony being Sony in the sense that they said, while people are watching movies on their Xbox, our people will be playing video games on their game console. So, take that for what it is. Obviously, not everyone plays video games all the time. Sometimes we enjoy watching movies. But I do think that they very clearly have said, this is a video game system. This is for gamers. It doesn't matter, what that drive is when it comes to producing the content the way we need to for gaming. Now, again, I still think it's a mistake. I think it was a misstep because I think it is an easy way for people because not everyone is a hardcore gamer. Most people, if they can reduce the number of items they have in their entertainment center, are going to want to do that. So it makes sense for that. But, from a 4K gaming standpoint, obviously the Pro it does a much better job and more robust job than the current Xbox One S does, but obviously they definitely have that advantage when it comes to watching movies on the One S with that UHD that they have in there. So, yeah.
Just as a side note with the UHD, actually most of the 4K UHDs actually come with the digital copy, so you still have that option if you've got good enough internet to stream 4K.
Yeah, that great internet that I have in the middle of Iowa. It's pretty great. So, which is the downfall, which is definitely the downfall. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think that Sony might release a new console in 2018. In our Slack chat that we have, I think that's kind of what I had put out there, that I could see fall of 2017, they're going to package the Pro and PSVR together to try to fight the Scorpio. I think the Scorpio actually is going to come in pretty reasonably priced. I don't think it's going to be as exorbitant as we all thought it was going to be. I think that Microsoft is going to make it very competitive from a price point standpoint. But I could see, depending on if that system does something new or different that we haven't seen in gaming, I could see Sony trying to push things to get a new console in 2018. But if the console just has prettier graphics, I could see Sony waiting until 2019 for something new, because if it really just makes things look nicer, at some point, if you have a 4K TV and you have a Scorpio and you have a PlayStation Pro, maybe one day I'll have to go to a store that has two 4K televisions to look at the difference. But I do wonder, at what point are we starting to split hairs, right, as far as how good something looks. If it can do something different, if it can make gaming different, that's awesome. But if it just makes things look more pretty, well, things have been looking more pretty time and time and time again. So I think that will be the true test when it comes to how fast Sony pushes their next iteration, at least to me. So, no year would be complete without, checking a few games off of our backlog. So, if you don't have a backlog, maybe you found a good deal on a game, a year or so after it was released. So before we jump into those 2016 releases that we played this year and what we thought were the best, I'm curious, what was the best game you played for the first time this year that was released prior to January of 2016? So Justin, what was the best old game you played this year?
Well, I have been playing a game that was hot off the presses back in 1994. So I don't know if this is the kind of backlog you're thinking of, but I have been playing a lot of Final Fantasy VI on my PlayStation Vita. Not your typical backlog, since it didn't come out recently at all, but I've been playing a lot of that. And I think that just kind of, it's fun to dive back into old games, not necessarily games that just came out last year. But as far as more recent games, more of a traditional backlog, while I have played this in the past, it's a game that I continue to play in 2016, and that's Rocket League. When I have friends who come by who maybe have played games in the past, or they're not, they have a new system, but they're not serious gamers, I always boot up Rocket League because it's easy to understand. The concept's kind of funny, and once you get the controls down, it's just a blast, and it's easy split screen. So it can be a lot of fun. So when I have, friends come over, or, some of my younger siblings come over who don't play a lot of games, I'll boot that up and play, and it's just as fun as today as when it came out. And I think it's one of those games that's gonna, I don't want to say stand the test of time, but I mean, it definitely could. It's something I could pull out in 3 years and still have fun when, playing split screen with some friends in the room. So those would probably be my two biggest games. Generally, if I miss something, last year or something, it's too hard for me to go back to a big release usually. I'll just try to, there's so many new games, I'll just pick something up new and start there. But that's it for me.
Awesome. Seth, how about you, sir?
Yes. So the game that I think sort of inspired this topic that I've been playing recently is Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which was, I think, last fall's Assassin's Creed game. Assassin's Creed has always been a series that I look at and think that I'll have fun with, but the first one I ever played was number 3, which was the American Revolution, which was the first setting that really spoke to me. And it was a fine game, but could get kind of boring, and traveling around can be kind of slow compared to some other games. And I played Black Flag and just couldn't get into the ship combat. And so I skipped whatever came after Black Flag, if that was Unity. And then I picked up Syndicate a couple months ago on a sale, and it had been sitting on my hard drive for a long time. And then I finally decided to boot it up a couple weeks ago, and just had a blast with it. I like the two different characters. I like that though you can play them kind of the same, Jacob and Evie, you're encouraged to play them differently. Jacob is more of a brute. He likes to go into his assassination attempts and just brute force his way through them. Evie is more stealthy, and when I played with her, I tried to be stealthier and tried to come at things from different angles. Didn't always work, but I liked that it really kind of made you do two different play styles. I like the setting of London in the 1800s. It's a pretty game, and the story, I have no clue why they had any of the modern day stuff. I don't know what's going on with the Animus. I don't care. I don't even really care that much about the story from London. But I just had a blast running through London and meeting different people from history, meeting Charles Darwin and the author, Dickens, Charles Dickens, and his missions especially are really fun, have to do with ghosts. Liked meeting Alexander Graham Bell, and I just had a lot of fun with it. So definitely, if you're a fan of the Assassin's Creed games but just kind of have fallen off, I had a lot of fun with Syndicate. Certainly, I think you could get it pretty cheap by now. The other game, as I was looking back through my year, earlier this year I picked up Tales from the Borderlands. And I've only played parts of the regular Borderlands games, but heard good things about the Telltale game. So I picked it up again for a sale earlier this year, and it might be my favorite of the Telltale games. It's super funny, and it has just has a lot of style. And I just really enjoyed that. So that one might be my favorite of games from yesteryear that I've played.
Excellent. I can't believe you don't like Black Flag, but that's okay. Everyone has
I
flaws.
I just suck. I'm terrible at the ship combat, and so if you're really bad at one part of the game, and especially that's such a large part of the game, I just couldn't play it.
I don't think you were bad at it. You just realized how boring the ship combat really was.
Well, that could be it too.
Wow.
I 100% agree.
Oh, man. Well, we're going to transition here, so I'm not having to fight off all three of you. So, for me, the game that I played this year that was, the game I had missed, is probably going to be a bit of a niche title. But it's something I played on my Vita. It came out originally in the summer of 2015, and that is Persona 4 Dancing All Night. I am a huge fan of rhythm games. I find them super enjoyable and just great little... And the reason I like them is you can sit down and play them for 2 hours, or you can sit down and play them for 10 minutes, because everything is just done in nice, short little chunks. If you played any of Persona 4 or Persona 4 Golden on Vita, obviously same characters and really great. That game has excellent music, so you get the music from that game along with some really excellent remixes. And it was a game that I didn't have super high hopes on, and I had heard it was a decent rhythm game. But I picked it up. I actually picked it up when it released in the summer of 2015, and then I was just playing so much other stuff on my Vita. I never got around to it until earlier this year. And man, I wish I would have jumped into it right away, because that was a great experience. Really happy with it. Was able to work my way through with my old fingers and still get the platinum on that guy. So yeah, that was the game I think I played this year that was the best, that I really was happy with. And that was Persona 4 Dancing All Night. Devin, what say you, sir?
Well, as far as backlog, everything in my catalog, in my stuff is a backlog, in all honesty. But as far as what I've been playing lately, just Destiny. I've been under a Destiny rock for like the last year, mainly because after having my son, it was just hard to play anything for anything longer than like 20, 30 minutes at a time. So that was really all I've been playing as far as gaming wise for quite some time, especially anything that wasn't released this year. Nothing else I've really played was from a backlog. It was really just Uncharted, Ratchet and Clank, and that was really about it for this year until recently when my son actually likes to stay asleep and I can actually get some gaming in. But other than that, I've just been playing a whole lot of Destiny.
Excellent. So, Donnie originally wanted us to address games in specific categories, but we chatted a bit as a group and decided that, hey, we haven't necessarily played games in all the categories he wanted us to cover. So since Donnie isn't here, the government of PlayStation Island has decided to proceed as we see fit, and that means we're going to walk you through each of our top 5 games of the year. Now, we haven't shared our list with one another, so we have no idea how much overlap there will be. I'm assuming there's going to be some. So if it's your turn and your game's already been mentioned, feel free to go ahead and add some unique perspective or something that you feel is different, but no reason for us to cover all the same information over again. So we're just going to jump right into it, starting off with number 5. Seth, what was your number 5 game of the year?
Firewatch. Firewatch came out, I don't know when it came out, February, something like that. And I really like those first-person exploration games that have interesting stories. I think the Firewatch story is really interesting. It's a gorgeous game. It has great voice acting between the main characters. I even forget what the main character's name is. Is it Henry? Something like that?
Henry and Delilah? Is that right?
Yeah, and Delilah, yeah. And Henry is voiced by that one guy from Mad Men. And I forget who Delilah is voiced by, but they have great voice acting. I liked the dialogue choices that you had, just the way that it was implemented into the game. I also like the traveling around the forest there. I think it takes place over five separate days during one summer and tells the story. And during those 5 days, you really get to know the layout of the forest. And you do have a map, but you don't have basically like a GPS system like you have in most modern games, like if you're playing a GTA or something like that. So you know exactly where you are and exactly where you need to go. You actually, in the game, have to look down at your map to figure out where you are based on landmarks and things like that to figure out how to get where you need to go. So I really liked that, and really just think it's a really pretty game. And if you like those first-person exploration sort of games, that it's a definite should play.
Awesome. So my number 5 is a game I've talked about on the podcast before. It was a little indie title that came out in March called Assault Android Cactus. This is a twin stick shooter. This is a totally awesome game. Developed by a small little company called Witchbeam. I think this was their first game, and there are only like 2 or 3 people that work there. But these are the kind of games that I just dig. It's bright, it's colorful. The soundtrack is just awesome. The characters are fun and witty. But in the end, it comes down to gameplay. How good are you? Are you able to beat that high score? Are you able to keep your score streak going? There's a number of different androids you get to play off, and they all have very unique guns. Both their primary and secondary weapons are extremely unique. So just a really awesome game. If you enjoy a good arcade game or you enjoy a good twin stick shooter, I cannot recommend Assault Android Cactus enough. Definitely my number 5 game of the year. Devin, what was your number 5?
So my number 5 game of the year was actually Ratchet and Clank. This one was, confession, I didn't play any of the Ratchet and Clanks from previous at all. So this was actually the first Ratchet and Clank game that I've played. And what made it special was the fact that my daughter saw it and she was like, "Oh, Dad, play that game. I want to see that guy." So I fired it up and I actually really enjoyed it. I'm not a huge fan of platforming games, so this was actually nice to get into. It was colorful, the characters were fun, The gameplay was fun. Just all the collectibles. I'm big on actually going through and finding all the collectibles. So that was a lot of fun. And just being able to have that time to enjoy it with my daughter while she just basically sat there and watched me play was really cool. So that's my number 5 game of the year.
And Justin, what was your number 5?
My number 5 game of the year is going to be Dragon Quest Builders. And this is a game that came out on PS4 and PlayStation Vita. I am playing it on my Vita. Long live Vita. And I wouldn't necessarily say this is just a great game, like offhand. Like, it doesn't have that great of a story, but the gameplay is really solid, and I'm hooked. So I feel like I have to say it's one of the better games of the year because I keep coming back to it. It is very much like Minecraft or other builder type game where the whole world is based on a world of blocks, and you kind of chip away at those blocks and you can build things. And but unlike Minecraft, there's some sort of story going on. There is some missions or quests set up that you have to go out and seek out specific things, which I really enjoy that. I think that's one thing that I never... I did try Minecraft, a little while back, and just couldn't... I understood where you'd kind of get into it, but I didn't... There was no goal, and I didn't like that. But this game has that. It's got... some of the dialogue is really weird and pretty funny. I've never played a proper Dragon Quest game, but from what I know, they're just kind of borrowing some of the characters and enemies and kind of throwing them into this semi-Minecraft, game. But I'm enjoying it a lot, and it's my number 5 for the year.
Awesome. So moving on to number 4. My number 4 is actually the game that pushed Dragon Quest Builders out of my top 5, and that is Odin Sphere Leftrauser, which I'm playing on my Vita. Now, this is an action role-playing game that is basically a rework of a game that initially came out, I think, like in 2007. It released this summer on both Vita and PS4. And what's really cool about this game is it takes you on this story that there's a war happening in the land called Arion, and you play through the same parts of the story, but as 5 different characters. So you basically run through a story mode, then you get to start with a new character, run through the similar timeline of the story, but from that character's perspective. So you get to see how this war is fighting out, why the different factions are involved the way they are, what their motivations are, and kind of what they're feeling. All the characters play pretty differently. It's definitely an action, emphasis on the action when it comes to role-playing game, because you're building up 100, 200 plus hit combos while you're fighting these enemies. So you get these absolutely crazy combos. You have a really interesting leveling system and ability system that's built in. Really beautiful art and sound. The storytelling, it's a little bit out of 2007. It's definitely not the best story, but it's enough to keep you interested and keep you going. But excellent game. Highly recommend it. Like I said, I played it on Vita, but it is available on PS4. My number 4 game of the year, Odin Sphere Leftrauser. Devin, what's your number 4?
All right, so for me, number 4 is going to be Destiny Rise of Iron for sure. Like, as I stated, I've been under a Destiny rock. It is like my go-to game. This one we finally got to see a little bit more of the lore, a little bit more of the story that everybody says is missing from Destiny. We got to see about the Iron Lords, what was their fate, a new enemy, just more Destiny to run around in, and that's always a good thing for me. Like, I just enjoy that game so much, and I've got a crew of people that I play with online, and for us to actually just have more stuff to do, a new raid that was actually a lot of fun, more social space, just a lot more Destiny, basically. It was just a lot of fun finally being able to dig into some of that lore, see some of what the Iron Lords are about, and also get more Grimoire cards, because I'm a huge Grimoire fan when it comes to Destiny. Like, when you say there's no story, I'd have to challenge that, because there's a ton of story in Destiny. You just have to be willing to go outside of the game to find it, which for me, it's no big deal. But yeah, I had a ton of fun with this one. I can't even imagine the amount of hours that I've put into this game, and I still will, because every Thursday we have a raid night. So Destiny Rise of Iron gets the number 4 slot for me.
All right, Justin, are you going to bring us another Vita game for your number 4?
I wish, but no, I'm actually gonna My number 4 game of the year is actually Ratchet and Clank. And like Devin's, just like Devin, I never played any of the older Ratchet and Clank games, but I really love this game. It was a lot of fun. It looks really great. I mean, it was just a fun game to watch. My wife would walk by and kind of look at what I'm playing, and I think she was just happy I wasn't playing some gruesome shooter. But because I think it's a lot of fun to watch and play at the same time. And there's that goofy story, and some of the cutscenes were fun to watch, and it was just fun to play. A game that's probably aimed at a younger crowd, but still had some of the difficulty and for older gamers.
All right, so Seth, bring us home. What's your number 4 game of the year?
My number 4 game of the year is Oxenfree. I forget when it came out, but it came out sometime maybe over the summer or earlier in the year. And it is a kind of 2.5D side-scrolling Telltale game, basically. Not developed by Telltale, but that style of game where you're controlling this teenage girl. I think she's a junior. I think it's a junior class. Kind of goes out to this island over and spends the night there. And this island is supposedly, I think they go out there just to party. And then the island is also supposedly haunted. And then you kind of find out that it is haunted and just go and do a bunch of different things while you're exploring the island. And I really got wrapped up in the story and in the relationships between the characters. And I just like that style of a game, just in being able to choose your conversation pieces and to decide how you want to respond to other people. And it really, in this one, there are a few different endings or different things that can happen at the end of the game based on the decisions that you make throughout the game. And I actually, I think it's the only game from 2016 that I actually platinumed. And it takes 3 playthroughs basically. And I couldn't put it down until I platinumed it. It just really is one of my favorite of that Telltale branching storyline kind of games.
Awesome. So that's Oxenfree at Seth's number 4. All right, we'll jump on down one more, or move up one notch if you would. Number 3 game of the year. Devin, what's in your number 3 slot?
So my number 3 slot is going to be taken up by Dishonored 2. I absolutely loved the first game, and even though this game just came out, it's already my number 3. Loved being able to jump back into that world, loved being able to play with those characters and the abilities, or should I say, being able to play with Corvo and a new character, Emily, being able to see that she's got her own set of powers and they are vastly different from Corvo's powers. So you essentially have 4 different ways to finish this game. If you want to go with the high chaos where you just basically murder everyone, or if you're more like me and you're taking the stealthy approach and want to kill absolutely nobody in the game, you can do that with both playthroughs, with Corvo or Emily, because it's actually a different story depending on who you're playing with. So that's a lot of fun, and just that world, that art style, it's just so drastically different from a lot of the stuff that we've seen as of late. So being able to jump back into that world and just be this stealthy ninja who kills no one is just a lot of fun. The art style is just different, and it's fun to look at that because it's kind of like futuristic but really old school. And it's just been a blast to play, been a blast to get back into that world and really dive back into that lore. So that's the number 3 game for me.
Justin, can you be a stealthy ninja in your number 3 game?
Nope, not at all, actually. Complete opposite. My number 3 is Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. So, unfortunately, you can't be a stealthy ninja in Call of Duty. But in Infinite Warfare, I just thought the story was a lot of fun. Call of Duty it's a lot of the same every year. The mechanics are the same. You're still getting the silky smooth gameplay. The 60 frames per second. You're getting really great visuals. But this year the story kind of amped it up. It was a lot better story. They also threw in some of the dogfighting missions, which were, there might have been maybe one or two too many of those kind of missions, but they were a lot of fun. They just kind of the thing about this campaign was it felt like I was just on a really fun roller coaster. Obviously I'm still controlling everything, but if you play it right, it's just gonna feel like a blockbuster movie, and I had a lot of fun with it. More fun than I've had with a Call of Duty in a while, with a campaign anyways. I didn't have as much fun with the multiplayer. I'm falling out of love with Call of Duty multiplayer. I used to be a huge multiplayer guy, but not so much anymore with these futuristic versions of the game. But Infinite Warfare, I still, if anyone just wants to have like 4 to 6 hours of a fun campaign, that's definitely the game to pick up.
Awesome. I agree. That campaign was absolutely fantastic. Seth, what is your number 3 game of the year?
My number 3 game is NBA 2K17. Pretty much any given year since NBA 2K11 with Michael Jordan story mode, NBA 2K has been one of my top 1, 2, 3 games of the year. And this year is no different. In many ways, it's a perfected version of NBA 2K16, only without the goofy Spike Lee story mode. The career mode is still goofy. I honestly didn't even do the whole thing. My preferred way to play is through General Manager mode, GM mode. And I always, every year, I take the Timberwolves and build them up into a powerhouse. This year, the new thing this year they added was expansion teams. So I started an expansion team, the Cincinnati Sunset Riders. And so you design your logos and everything, upload them into the system, download them into the game, and you can start an expansion team. You start off with the expansion draft. So it's a lot of kind of NBA nerd kind of stuff that I'm really into, that they really just nailed. The presentation is always great. The game looks awesome. If you want to play NBA as a franchise sim, you can play it as a franchise sim. If you want to play a single player career mode, it's got a great single player career mode. If you want to do online my team stuff, it has that. So if you're kind of, no matter how much what way you want to play an NBA game, it's there, other than if you want to play like NBA Jam or Arch Rivals and beat people up, stuff like that. But pretty much any way that you want to play an NBA branded game, you can play an NBA 2K17, and it's better than it's ever been.
Seth, I got a quick question for you. So most games have a normal difficulty, a hard difficulty, a hardcore difficulty. Is the version of your hardcore difficulty picking a team like the Timberwolves? Because I imagine it takes a while to build them up to actually be a good team to play with.
Sort of. Part of one of my favorite teams in the NBA is the Minnesota Timberwolves. I'm a big Kevin Garnett fan. I've liked him. I've liked the team since I was 10 years old, and he got on the team. And my favorite animal was also a wolf. So that's part of how I picked it. I'm from Ohio, and I've gone to Cavs games since I was 8 years old, and so I also like the Cavs a lot too. But it's certainly, for me, more fun to pick a team either that is terrible and just trying to totally rebuild them. I picked some past seasons, like I've picked the Nets and sort of rebuilt them. And it's just more fun to be able to start from nothing, to to start from the bottom, and now we're at the top. To start from nothing and get to the NBA championship. Certainly a lot more fun than, although I really enjoy watching the Cavs and playing as the Cavs in the game. It's not as much fun just going into the game and knowing you're going to win the championship every year, or at least contend for it right from the beginning. I like to make trades and things like that. So that it certainly increases the difficulty.
I just thought I'd give you a little bit of a hard time for picking the Timberwolves.
Hey, they are an up and coming team. Have you? This year they've been a little bit disappointing so far, record wise.
I don't have a lot of room to talk since I'm a Pistons guy. So, our glory days are definitely
Hey, they have won championships. The Pistons won 3 championships since the Timberwolves have been a franchise. So,
right. That's probably why I'm not a huge fan of most professional sports, because I can't find a professional sports team that represents my favorite animal. No hippo mascots out there.
Hey, you need to play Super Mega Baseball.
I do need to play Super Mega Baseball. That is true.
They're called the Wild
Close
Birds.
enough. Close enough. So, my number 3 game of the year is actually a game I think Seth likes a little bit more than I do, and it's this little game called Bound. No reaction from Seth. Okay, I was totally joking about that. I just thought Seth would say something.
I think you're wrong.
So, my actual number 3 game is this little game that you all may have heard of called Overwatch. So, when Overwatch came out back in May, I played it and I thought it was pretty good. But a lot of people were talking about how it was the best game of the year. It was going to make, best of the year list, and it was going to be, a contender for game of the year, when December rolled around. And I was like, I mean, it's fun, but it's not that good. And then I played a little more of it, and then I played a little more of it. And now, when I sit down to play games, I have to typically actively talk myself out of playing Overwatch for me to play other things. Otherwise, all I would do is sit and play Overwatch. I've probably put about 60 or 65 hours into it, which for a lot of people isn't a ton of time, but for me to put that much time into one game is a pretty big deal. I'm one of those people who really enjoys games that are 4, 5, 6 hours, maybe 10, 12 at the most, and then I can move on to the next thing. So for me to be interested in something for this long is a big deal. I also like how no matter what role you take, it's something you can learn to actively contribute to your team. It's not just about what's your kill to death ratio. I used to play a ton of first person shooters, in competitive online multiplayer when I was a younger man with faster reflexes, but now that I'm a little bit older and my reflexes aren't quite what they were, it's nice to still be able to go into a game, feel like you're contributing, and the characters and the character design is spectacular. Talking about, when Devin was talking about Destiny having a story outside of the game, I mean, the story of Overwatch and the characters in Overwatch are so likable, and so little of it is actually talked about in the game, but it's a world that I just constantly want to know more about. And I love the fact that Blizzard is constantly putting more information in and giving us more things to talk about in relation to it. So that is my number 3 game of the year, Overwatch. So, just swimming along here to the number 2 section. Justin, what is your number 2 game of the year?
Oh boy, we're really getting down to the wire here, I guess. But I feel like we're gonna have really similar number 1 predictions. But my number 2, I am hoping that way, anyways. But my number 2 prediction or game of the year is Rise of the Tomb Raider for PS4. This is a game that came out last year, actually, technically, on the Xbox One and PC, but it came to PS4 within the last, would it come out a month ago or so, I think, and I've been playing it for the last, week or two, and I'm having a blast. Third person action adventure games are just right up my alley. I love the story is decent. The gameplay is a lot of fun. Just kind of slowly working my way through each area, trying to collect all of the collectibles. I'm just having a blast. And it looks great as usual, and I'm having a lot of fun. So that's definitely my number 2 game of the year.
Seth, what is your number 2 game?
My number 2 game is Headlander. which is actually the game that got me onto the PSVG staff because I was raving about it in the forums, and Donnie sent me a note and asked if I would be all right with writing a review on it. Honestly, the game surprised me, which is probably part of the reason why it's so high on my Game of the Year list, in that when I first heard about it, I thought it looked dumb. I was like, you're this head of an astronaut and you float around a space station and land on different robots to go through doors. And that's kind of what my understanding was of it at first. But then it was part of one of PlayStation's promotions. I think there's some summer indie promotion where if you bought 3 or 4 of the games, you got some sort of voucher later on. So I just kind of included it with that, and I was interested in the other games. I was interested in Bound at the time, which was a mistake, and I was interested in Abzu, which I enjoyed, and I forget which the other.
Brutal.
Brutal, which I got into a little bit, but it came out the same day as No Man's Sky, so I never really dug into that one. But Headlander. It's a Double Fine game, and it is very much a Double Fine game in terms of the humor involved in it. It's a really pretty game with a lot of different colors, and it has an interesting story where you're in the far future and you're this astronaut, and you're this astronaut head actually, and you are just kind of trying to figure out what's going on in this world and where all the people went. And it's kind of Metroidvania-ish, where you need to backtrack a little bit to be able to progress, but it wasn't annoyingly so. And you're able to, if you're in one section, whatever you need is in this one section, and you just need to figure out how to get it. You don't have to go and backtrack throughout the whole game in order to find a lever to pull or whatever. So I just thought it's a really clever game. It's funny, and I liked the combat and the exploration and the story, and it just really, it's one of my favorite games of this year, one of my favorite games on the PS4.
Awesome. Headlander was definitely a good time. So my number 2 game is a game that's been mentioned a couple times already, and I'll be honest, the first time I wrote this list, this game was my number 1 game, but then I changed it and made it number 2, and that is Ratchet and Clank. And like others, this is actually the first Ratchet and Clank game I had played. I had never played any of the other ones, just never really got my attention, and I never really felt like it was something I wanted to play. But this one looked cool. I thought it was neat that they were releasing it at the price point that they released it at. And man, this game is beautiful and probably is the most just fun I have had playing a game all year. There are other games that I play and I enjoy, but maybe I'm really focused or concentrating or stressed out. But man, this game was just such a blast to play. The characters were great. The story was fine, but that game is such a looker, so much fun to play. I truly think it is one of the best games on PS4, and I do honestly think it is a must-play if you are a PS4 owner. So that's my number 2, Ratchet and Clank. Devin, what is your number 2, sir?
So my number 2 is a newcomer to the PlayStation, Titanfall 2. This game had me sold from the moment I started it up. I was just amazed by what it looked like. It was just super smooth, 60 frames per second. It was just a blast to play. The movement, the story was actually what really drew me in. The fact that it was you as this guy who basically just gets pushed into becoming an operator of a Titan who lost its operator, and you build up this relationship with BT, that's the name of the Titan or whatnot, and just watching their relationship grow, and then while you're going around taking out all the bad guys or whatnot, all the other guys all the main heads who were running this corporation, it was just a lot of fun. It was just a blast. It was like a palate cleanser from playing Destiny, playing something different as a first person shooter with just way different movement. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the story, and I'm really hoping that we get either a Titanfall 3 or they add some single-player DLC to it, because I'd love to see where it goes, because at the end of it, I'm just gonna go ahead and spoil it because I don't think many people are going to play it that haven't already played it. BT may or may not be lost. But yeah,
apparently we don't want spoilers.
I'm just really looking forward to playing that, getting back into some more Titanfall. I haven't really played around with the multiplayer, just because I'm not a huge competitive multiplayer guy when it comes to first person shooters. I really enjoy the campaign aspects of it. I've played a couple of matches and it's just not my thing. But the campaign and just the story mode and just the way you traverse as a pilot is just a lot of fun. So if you're looking for something like that, I would definitely jump into it. And that's my number 2 game of the year.
Wait, Devin,
All right.
wait, have you played
Go
Call
ahead.
of Duty, Devin?
I haven't played it yet.
Okay, I'm just kind of curious. So I feel like I've heard that Titanfall 2 is more skewed towards the multiplayer, and the single player is just kind of an add-on. So it's very interesting that you really enjoyed the single player, but I haven't jumped into multiplayer because this is definitely a game that I think I'm going to be picking up soon, probably during the holidays. So I was just kind of curious if it sounds like they're actually kind of on par this year for just a fun campaign to play through.
Yeah, everybody that I've talked to who played has really enjoyed the campaign. They've actually played the campaign. It's saying something. But yeah, and I'm also looking to jump into Call of Duty because I hear the campaign there is really good. So I'm excited for that as well because I've always enjoyed the campaigns. So I'm really looking forward to jumping into that one at some point.
All right. So that brings us down to number 1. And I'm sure nobody has any guesses as to what most folks' number 1 game of the year is going to be. But Seth,
Bound.
why don't you
All
start?
around.
Seth,
Right.
So,
what do you got for us, Seth? What's your number 1?
So it's Uncharted 4. Before I talk about it, is everyone else's Uncharted 4?
That is
Yeah.
mine.
I mean, mine is, yeah.
Yeah.
Who would have thunk?
Right.
So okay, so we're all on the same page. So I will start off, and then I don't want to cover it too much. But Uncharted 4, it's from Naughty Dog, and they are really the premier reason to own a PlayStation over an Xbox One. Or ideally, if you're able to own both, that's fine too. Not starting any flame wars, but Naughty Dog is the developer, and Uncharted is my favorite series from them. Certainly more than Crash Bandicoot and Jak and Daxter, which I never actually played Jak and Daxter, but and I just Indiana Jones is my favorite movie franchise, and Uncharted is the closest that I've ever gotten to playing an Indiana Jones, like really playing an Indiana Jones video game and feeling like an adventurer. And I feel like Uncharted 4 just builds on the 3 previous games. I replayed all 3 of them leading up to Uncharted 4 being released, and they really get better. Each game gets better from game to game. And then even Uncharted 4, you can see where their gameplay has grown even from The Last of Us, and just how the different characters move, the environments. The environments are a lot more open than the previous Uncharted's. But really for me, it's all about the relationships between Nathan and Elena and Sully and now his brother. It's the prettiest game I've ever played. And it's just the most fun gaming experience that I had this year in terms of gameplay and story, and really think it's the best game on the PlayStation 4.
Yeah, I agree, Seth. I think the thing that I enjoyed most about it that you didn't specifically talk about is just really the relationships between the characters, especially when you look at Nate and Elena. Like, how often do we see married couples in games having marital strife and trying to figure out how to work through that? Like, that is if you told people who haven't played video games since Super Mario Brothers and were like, hey, here's this game, here's what the premise of the game is, and here's kind of what the story is about, and told them about all of those situations and the dynamics that are in there, I think people would be really surprised at how far they've come. And I just really, this is the game that, because of it, Rise of the Tomb Raider didn't make my top 5 list, because you can't help but compare the two, and I just didn't feel like Rise of the Tomb Raider from a story perspective was anywhere near as compelling or interesting. And I just don't care about Lara as a character as much as they care about Nate and Elena and Sully. Like, those are characters that I'm happy in some ways that they're like, hey, we've wrapped this up, we put a nice little bow on it. But I am sad that that there's a distinct possibility we will never get more stories about them, save for maybe some single-player DLC. I'm bummed that this might be the last time we see a full game with those characters, because I really enjoy playing those games and learning about them and getting a glimpse into their lives. Devin, what are your thoughts on Uncharted 4?
I absolutely adored it. That game just takes me to places. There's just so much there, especially with like the relationship building, like just being able to see Nathan go through all of that with Sully, with his brother, with Elena, just being able to kind of almost like feel like you're a part of it, like you're watching it. Now if you've played all of the Uncharteds before, like this is a character that you've kind of just grown to love and you've grown up with, and you've seen him go from being single Nate to now being married Nate, and what he has to deal with what his life is. It's kind of like, oh, I'm getting older now. I can't do what I want to do because, I've got a relationship, I've got a family, and I've got to think about that. And that pull and push when you're married, like being able to have to sacrifice what you really want to do for the good of your family. So that right there, just as a story beat alone, just you don't see something like that in games, and being able to see that and play through that, not to mention the game is just gorgeous, and the gameplay is fun. And you find yourself almost wanting to get through the gameplay just to get to the next cutscene to see what's going on with the story. Like, that says a lot about a game, that you're actually being just driven to play. Like, you don't want to put this one down. It was just an absolute blast. I like you said, I'm sad that this may be the last of the Uncharted series. That may be the last time we get to see Nate, So that kind of sucks. It's very bittersweet. Hopefully they do add some really good single-player DLC. I'm hoping for some kind of announcement at PSX that they're going to be bringing something other than the Horde mode. But I'm just absolutely in love with this game, in love with the series, and I really hope that we get to see some more of Nate somewhere down the road.
Awesome. Justin, what would you like to add, sir?
Yeah, I think you guys all covered it. It's really an amazing game. No one other than Naughty Dog is doing story in video games that well, and that's why it's probably all of our number one game of the year. It's just the story was incredible. Yeah, you got the relationships, you've got the husband and wife relationship, you've got the mentor relationship with Sully, and you've got the older brother relationship that was brand new to a lot of fans, and they all worked really well. They were all really well written, and it was just for me nowadays, I don't have as much time to play video games, but when I get to play through a campaign that just like really, all my focus is on the story because it's so rich and so good. I can't, that's the best game there is. So yeah, Uncharted 4, it sounds like it's across the board for PlayStation 4, for PlayStation fans, the game of the year.
Absolutely. So with that, I'm not sure about everyone else. We've just run through our top 5, but I had a really tough time keeping my list of 5 games. So I just really briefly, if you just want to go through, what were the last games you cut from your list, or what were those unique, special experiences that you had this year that maybe weren't enough to be a top 5 game, but you think are things people should check out? So keep it short. You don't have to run through necessarily everything, but just think of a couple of those games that you were the first ones out or the last ones out, and just run through your list really quick. So while you put that together, I will go through mine very briefly. Tethered, which is a PSVR game, probably one of my favorite PSVR games. It's from a little studio called Secret Sorcery. It's a God game. I have a review for this on the PSVG website, so I highly encourage you to check it out. Great game. The only reason it didn't make my top 5 is because I sucked too bad to actually beat the entire game. But I think that should tell you something. I enjoy it that much, even though I'm horrible at it, because I'm just not good at real-time strategy games. But that was an excellent experience. Firewatch, which Seth had mentioned, fabulous, fabulous game. I enjoy adventure games. The voice acting in that is second to none. It is excellently written, excellently acted, and I think definitely a game you should all check out. The Witness, which came out, earlier in the year, really solid puzzle game from Jonathan Blow. Really is going to test you, put kind of your mind to the test, and it does a really unique way of teaching you puzzles and how to solve puzzles without any words. And I think that's just a really cool thing that it's able to do. I'm one trophy short of the platinum on that. I just can't quite beat the time trial in it that you need to do. But great game for The Witness. And my final one is a game called Thumper. I've been playing it on PSVR. I love rhythm games, like I've said before. This one they call it a rhythm violence game, and it totally lives up. Really cool game, awesome in VR. Very, very challenging towards the end. Super simple concept when you start out, but by the end that game is really tough, really challenging. But I would definitely recommend it, especially if you have a PSVR, though you can play it just on your PS4 as well. That is Thumper. Devin, what were some of your honorable mentions?
So my only honorable mention actually is The Division. It was a lot of fun at start. Another one of those like Destiny type games where it's a shared world shooter for the most part, where you team up with a couple other guys and go through a campaign and kill some bad guys. It was a lot of fun, and then the end game was just marred with a lot of issues. They just came out with an update that patches a lot of the problems out that just kind of made the end game just drag on and just not be very fulfilling. So it's a lot of fun, especially if you've got a crew of guys you'd like to play with. It's a lot of fun to jump into that one. So that's my honorable mention. That's the only one I have.
Awesome. Justin, how about you?
I got a few of my honorable mentions. Destiny. I hadn't played Taken King or Rise of Iron, and I jumped into both of those recently. Still a really fun, great game. Just like Devin mentioned, it's a lot of fun to jump into with some friends. So it's definitely there. And just like Devin, also the Division was. I had a lot of fun with this game, and yeah, it had some issues, but I had a lot of fun. I jumped online with my brother and played through the campaign, and it was a lot of fun. And then Inside was also a great little indie game. Same guys who made Limbo, which I also really liked. Traditionally, it comes out on Xbox first, but it did come to PS4, and it's a fun little puzzle. Well, I wouldn't say fun. It's a little bit creepy, but it's a good game.
Awesome. And Seth, your honorable mentions.
All right. My first one is going to be Overwatch, which I really just got into this week. I had checked out on it a while ago. There was a free weekend, I don't know, 3 months ago, something like that I booted into it and played it for about a half hour at that point. Had trouble finding matches. I don't know what was going on. I was terrible at it. I think I had already decided that I didn't really want to play it. So I signed off and moved on with my life. Then this last weekend, there was another free weekend, and I was going to play it, and then that was when I was doing my swap of my old PS4 for my PS4 Pro. And then Overwatch was on sale, and there was a 10% discount on PSN. So I went ahead and got it for basically $30 and have played it every night since Tuesday. So it is far too soon for me to have in my top 5, but I can definitely see it being see me continuing to play it throughout in between other games that I want to play. It's a gorgeous game, and it's a lot of fun. Also, I definitely have to mention No Man's Sky. I know I sounded pretty down on it earlier in that I'm not looking to go back to it, and I'm not, unless there's some huge reason to. But I was hyped for the game, and it didn't really disappoint me, other than the reaction to the game from the company, and just that there was no response from them. So it was really kind of external stuff that sort of drove me from the game. But it's probably my most played game of the year. I don't play games for a lot of time either, and I probably put a good 40 to 50 hours into No Man's Sky. between whether I was trying to get to the center of the universe, trying to track down the Atlas stones, or just having fun exploring the different planets. It's a really pretty game. It's fun to land on a planet and to walk around and look at the different plants and animals that are available to upgrade your ship. Just the loop of going onto a planet, mining it for materials, and then selling those and upgrading your suit, your ship, and your gun, your weapon. It's a fun gameplay loop, and I really just, it's one of the few times that I let the external stuff that was going on with the game and just how much people hated it kind of get to me and really drag down my enjoyment. And then I got to a point where I wanted to play some other things, and like I said earlier, I was still 100,000 light years away and wasn't getting to the center anytime soon, and didn't feel like putting another 40 hours into it. So I sort of cheated and watched a stream of somebody else reaching the center of the galaxy. And I don't want to spoil it here for anyone else who's doing it, but it's not the most satisfying ending. I will say that. So I'm okay with not having spent the extra 40 hours to get to the middle. I'm not mad that I bought it. I'm not bad that I bought into the hype. I love the game, and I'm just done with it now. But it absolutely. Another thing I wanted to mention about it, just the things that it does with the procedural generation, and the fact that there are 18 quintillion planets out there, and that we're all kind of in a shared universe, but these, and they're planet-sized planets that are not really planet-sized planets if you walk across the whole planet, but they're huge planets with different things going on. It really is just technically an impressive thing, and I hope to see other companies, whether it's Hello Games or Sony or anybody else, just kind of expanding on that technology of the procedural generation, shared universe kind of game like this.
Awesome. So, that's our look back at 2016 and PlayStation in 2016. But we would be remiss if we did not look forward to 2017. And typically here at Play Some Video Games, we try to, keep how the sausage is made, if you would, hidden from view. We don't want you guys to see the mess ups or the mistakes or the things that, keep us looking so professional that like we do. But we have, other responsibilities. And unfortunately, Seth has, family things he needs to go do. So what we're going to do is we're going to let Seth answer kind of our final two topics, and then he's going to cut out. And I'm just telling you about this ahead of time, so when we get to the very end and the plugs and the outros, you're not thinking we just forgot about them. So, Seth, what are those games that you're looking to finish up that you haven't had a chance to yet? So what are those 2016 games that you want to finish up before the end of this year or into early next year? And what are your most anticipated games of 2017?
All right, so I've been thinking about that this week a lot with Black Friday and all the different deals, and I kind of splurged a little bit. And like I said, I bought into Overwatch, which I'm really enjoying and expect to continue playing that. But then the other games, I got the Telltale Batman, which I really like the Telltale games overall, and I love Batman, so I'm excited about that. And especially now, I think they're 4 episodes in out of a 5-episode season, so I like to get into the Telltale games and just play them all straight through. So I'm hoping by the time I get through the 4 seasons that the 5th season might be, or the 5th episode might be here. I also got Rise of the Tomb Raider that I'm excited about getting into. Loved the Tomb Raider reboot. Loved the original Tomb Raiders, Tomb Raider 1 and 2 back on PS1. And so I'm really excited to get into Rise of the Tomb Raider. Justin mentioned Inside. I completely forgot about that. So I expect to jump into that at some point. Might wait for that to go on sale at some point. The other game I'm playing right now, just before we started recording, I started Titanfall 2. Checked it out from our library. So people out there who want to try different games, aren't sure if you're going to like them, or just want to run through some campaigns, check your local libraries. It's a great resource for even video games. So I just got started with Titanfall 2. Probably this next week I will play through that. I also have Battlefield 1 reserved there. So I'm thinking that all of the games that I just mentioned are easily going to take me through until at least Horizon in February, if I jump on that, or might even take me through to Mass Effect in March. The other big game that I got this week is Skyrim, which I've wanted to play for 5 years and just have never gotten around to. So now I'm finally going to get around to it and expect to boot that up. I'm going to try to beat Rise of the Tomb Raider and Telltale Batman before I jump into that, because I imagine I'll get sucked down the rabbit hole there. As far as 2017, I mentioned it. The Mass Effect series is my favorite series from PS3 generation. Mass Effect 2, I generally consider to be my favorite game ever. And I'm super excited about Mass Effect Andromeda. I know I've paid attention to some of the stuff going on with it, but honestly, I could go on media blackout between now and when it launches, and I'd be fine. I'm just really excited about that. I also am looking forward to Red Dead Redemption. Red Dead Redemption, the first game, was in my top 3 of the PS3 generation, and really looking forward to the sequel. The first game is actually the only Rockstar game that I've ever beaten. Usually I get into a GTA and then do all the side stuff and all the things like blowing things up until all the police come after you, and never get to the main story. And I loved the first Red Dead Redemption story, and John Marston is one of my favorite characters in gaming, and I'm looking forward to the next one. The other games, I'm hoping Detroit Become Human comes out next year for PlayStation. I really like Quantic Dream and what they do, and I'm excited about that game. And then also Super Mega Baseball 2 comes out next year. Just recently picked up Super Mega Baseball 1 again, started playing that again, and it is such a good game. It looks like a cutesy, arcadey type of baseball game, but it's tough if you want it to be tough, or it's easy if you want it to be easy, and it's funny, and it's just a really good baseball game. And you can get through games in 20 or 30 minutes pretty easily. And then the final game I'm looking forward to next year on PlayStation is Pyre, which comes from Supergiant Games, and I think that at least Kyle might talk about that one a little bit. I honestly don't know a ton about Pyre, but Transistor and Bastion are 2 of my favorite games on the PS4, and I am signed off on anything that Supergiant does moving forward. So just by the fact of the developer, I'm really excited about that one. So that's me for the remainder of this year and for 2017. And with that, I'm going to sign off.
Awesome. So thank you so much for being with us, Seth, and thanks for all your contributions to the site this year. We totally appreciate it. So, yeah, man. So this podcast is getting a bit long in the tooth, so we're going to kind of just bunch things up for all of us moving forward. So, Devin, what games are you looking at finishing up this year, and what games are you most looking forward to for 2017?
All right, so finishing up for this year, Watch Dogs 2, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Hitman, and finally getting into some Overwatch would be what I'm looking forward to finishing up this year. And then next year, depending on what gets announced, which actually gets release dates, Horizon Zero Dawn, of course, Ghost Recon Wildlands is another one I'm really looking forward to, Mass Effect Andromeda, and if Spider-Man and Days Gone actually get release dates of next year, those, as well as possibly Detroit.
Well, that was piffy. Nice work, sir. Justin, how about you? What you finishing up and what you looking forward to?
Well, I definitely need to play through Hitman. I actually started that today, and I want to play through the rest of that and that whole entire season. And then Final Fantasy 15 is coming out next week, and I'm definitely going to be a day one adopter and playing into that, and I'm really excited to dive into that. I actually just watched the Kingsglaive movie today, which was a little bit weird, but I'm excited for a new Final Fantasy game. So, gonna finish that up to finish out this year. Next year, I think everyone's excited for this game, Horizon Zero Dawn. Can't wait to play that. And then I'm also excited for Ghost Recon Wildlands, just like Devin. I think it's been a long time since we've had like a tactical Ghost Recon game like that, so I'm very excited. And then I'll be excited that release date actually just got bumped, but for Persona 5. I've played Persona 4. I haven't beaten Persona 4 just because it's such a long game, and it's a little bit old now, but I'll definitely be jumping into that to try out the new stuff. So that's it for me.
Awesome. See, I'm in this really horrible position. I have 6 games sitting in my shopping cart on PSN because of these stupid Black Friday and flash sales, and I just haven't pulled the trigger yet because I'm like, do I have time to play these 6 games? And I probably don't, but I'm probably going to end up buying them anyway. But the big things I'm looking to finish up this year, I'm going to be a day one adopter of The Last Guardian. I don't expect it to be great, but I definitely want to check that game out and see what a 10-year development cycle means and kind of pull back the curtain on the mystique of this game. So like I said, I don't expect it to be great. I expect it hopefully to be good, but I'm not expecting it to make my top 5 list, but I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what that mystery is there. Just picked up Dishonored 2, so I've only had a chance to basically download the patch because I have very slow internet. So I haven't had a chance to play it at all yet, but I did pick that up, so I will hopefully be playing through that before the end of the year. And then, since Justin is getting it, I was on the fence about Final Fantasy 15. I couldn't decide if I was going to pick this up. I enjoy a good RPG. I really enjoyed I Am Setsuna from earlier this year, and just playing those style games. And obviously this is a pretty different JRPG. It looks much more Western, much more action oriented. But I might jump into that then, so maybe that Justin and I can do a little something for the site about Final Fantasy 15. But yeah, so that's kind of what I'm looking forward to, to finishing up. And then as far as next year, I could rattle off like pretty much all the AAA games. There's every AAA game Sony has announced, whether it's next year or moving forward. I'm pretty stoked about it. There's not one there that I don't think I will play. But if I had to pick out a few things, definitely Horizon Zero Dawn. And then if it does come out next year, Days Gone is something that I really am looking forward to. I really enjoyed the Mad Max game, and I kind of get that feeling that might fit in a similar vein there as far as you have this vehicle that you upgrade and it kind of is like its own character and stuff, and that seems pretty cool. In addition, there's this little indie game called Hob from Runic Games. This game is beautiful looking. You play this little character who has this big sweet metal arm, and it just looks really interesting. It's a little action platformer game. That looks pretty great. There's a PSVR game called Gollum coming from Highwire Games, where you play a girl who, through her mind, can control these golems. And that looks really interesting. Definitely excited about that one. And then, as Seth had mentioned, Pyre from Supergiant Games. I love pretty much everything they do. Transistor was great. Bastion is actually one of my top 10 favorite games of all time. I absolutely adore that game. So really looking forward to Pyre when that drops sometime early 2017. I think May is what they're shooting for. So that wraps up our look back at the PlayStation universe for 2016. If you haven't played them now, you have a list of games that we all think are great and some things that you could definitely check out if you haven't had an opportunity for thus yet. So as we close out this year of PSVG, Justin, is there anything you'd like to plug?
Not really. You can reach me on Twitter at jpicky86. I'll probably have a few pieces going up on the website in the next couple weeks, but as always, as most of us know, things get a little crazy at work and at home, so it's hard to get into gaming. But check the website out for the next couple of weeks. And this is going on during Christmas, so never mind.
At some point,
just go in the backlog of articles, and you'll probably find something from me. But that's about it for me.
Awesome. Devin, anything you'd like to let our folks know about?
Yeah, just follow me at DevATias on Twitter. Check the website, and just keep gaming.
Absolutely. And you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Psychocross, CYCOCROSS. You can find me at PSN at the same place. And, we're wrapping up the first year, not the first full year, but the first year of PSVG. So I just want to say from all of us here, thank you so much for your support, for giving us an opportunity. This is a passion project for all of us. None of us get paid or anything like that, no matter how much Donnie tells us he pays us. That truly doesn't happen. But we really enjoy the opportunity to, get together for us as a group and talk about it, something we're passionate about, and that you care enough to listen to it or go to the website.
You guys haven't gotten your checks yet?
Wait, you're getting paid?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm getting huge paychecks every week. You guys haven't gotten them yet?
It must be because I hate Nintendo. That's the only thing I can think of.
Oh, man, that's probably is it. But honestly, thank you all for listening to us and checking out the website. Hopefully next year we'll continue to bring bigger and better things from us. But we just really appreciate y'all giving us the opportunity to kind of pursue something we're passionate about. So make sure you visit the website at playsomvideogames.com and check out all the reviews and news. You can email us at podcast@playsomvideogames.com, Twitter at PSVG, and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/playsomvideogames. We have our Twitch and YouTube channels up as well, so check those out for most recent videos and reviews done quick. Please continue to share it with your friends. We really rely on all of you to help get the word out. And don't forget to rate us on iTunes. Thanks for listening to our PlayStation Year in Review, and as always, never stop gaming.